Welcome to the Dr. Mudgil podcast. This is episode 196 as we course our way through August. It's a beautiful, beautiful week here in New York. The weather's like unseasonably cool. It's almost like a tinge of fall in the air. It's cool in the morning, and it just reminds me that school is ahead. My two younger kids are starting school next week, which is early, but for some reason our school district always starts early, and we're actually dropping my daughter off to college tomorrow. So lots of exciting things happening. Usually around this time of year, before school starts, I always make a post about how, our family hustle renews aligns and renews when the school year starts, and sort of aligned with the action of the school year. And then when summer hits, we take our foot off the pedal a little bit. So, although we're still productive, kind of, relax a little bit, and then we, resume our grind when the school year starts. But I'm actually not going to talk about that in this podcast. I'm going to share a story with you guys and how life just continues to teach me lessons, even at my advanced age. So, as I mentioned, my daughter is off to college tomorrow. We're driving down. And in preparation, my wife, being the planner that she is, has been like just, acquiring things that my daughter's going to need for her dorm room. And part of that preparation involves me assembling things, like shelves and knickknacks and that sort of stuff. And last night when I got home from work, my wife asked me to assemble sort of this three-tiered rolling storage unit that, I guess, I don't know what my daughter will use it for. Maybe makeup, maybe school supplies, who the hell knows. But somewhere for, just to optimize the efficiency of her dorm room. So I got home from work, took a look at this. My wife said, I'll make dinner. Why don't you maybe just start working on this before dinner? And I checked it out. It's like, you know what? I'll bang this out in about 20, 30 minutes. And no problem. So I set up shop in the garage, took all the pieces out. It's like a 7-step, instruction guide. They're essentially like, 3 shelves basically 3 compartments, and there are 2 rods on the side, and then, the wheels on the bottom, like a base with wheels. So the first step is I put together one of the posts, which is essentially these 2 pieces that slide into each other, and then you attach the shelves. So putting the post together, and there's like a bit of resistance there. I'm thinking, wow, these really aren't going in like very easily. But I was like, it must be some kind of, when they were manufacturing this, must have been some kind of like error. And, there's just this resistance here, but probably no big deal. So I get a mallet out and I bang the 2 pieces together. So I have the arm all set up, and the first shelf goes on the top. I screw that in, no problem. They give you like a little wrench and, slash. It's one tool that's kind of like doubles as a wrench and a screwdriver. I'm sure many of you out there have assembled these sorts of things from like the Container Store, Target, or whatever. So first, there's the arm, and then the top shelf, I screw in like half of it to the post. Then you put the second shelf on. So the second shelf, I align with the holes, and I'm trying to screw it in, but it's just not screwing in at all. Like the teeth of the screw aren't grabbing. And it's like, this is very, very weird. This is like, remarkably more difficult than I thought it was going to be. So then I start getting out all my tools. So I'm like, okay, this hole is probably not big enough, and I'm not sure what happened, but something must have got screwed up when this, these parts were getting manufactured. And so I get my drill out and trying to make the hole a little bit wider. The screw is like still not really going in. So I'm actually like got my other tools out. And I'm using pliers to kind of like work the screw in like 0.5 millimeter at a time. And then at the end, I'm like using my screwdriver, but I end up like stripping the screws essentially, and I finally get it in. So I'm like, whew, all right, good. So I got these 2 in. Now let me go to the other side. I'm just hoping it's not going to be as difficult as the first arm. And I'm already like way into bonus territory. So what I thought was going to take me 20 or 30 minutes to assemble, I'm like way beyond the 30-minute point at this point. My wife's checking on me like, what's going on? I was like, just don't bother me. Like, let me handle this. Get a little frustrated. And then when I put the next step is, basically you have one of the arms and you have 2 of the shelves attached to it. Then what you do is you attach the other arm to the other side of the shelf, and then like you put it on the bottom of the base. So like I said, pretty simple. As you've heard me say many times over, the most important part of any anti-aging skin regimen is using a proper sunscreen, namely one that's at least an SPF 30 and contains titanium or zinc or both. I couldn't be more excited to announce the launch of these two amazing Dr. Mudgil brand sunscreens. One is tinted, one is non-tinted, depending on what your preference is. I also have an amazing hydrating and moisturizing serum, which your skin is absolutely going to love. There's a link in the description below, which you can click to check out the products. You are going to love them as much as I do. So the arms are basically comprised, as I mentioned, of two pieces that just insert into each other, and then you screw everything in place. So I get the other two pieces and I attach them, but they go in so easily, almost like too easily. And I'm like, huh, that's a little odd. Like, they really kind of, there's like zero, almost like negative resistance on this side, but there was so much resistance on the other side that I had to bang the two pieces together. So I'm like, all right, this is weird, again, chalking it up to there must have been some issue with the manufacturing of this thing. So I get the shelves lined up, and I'm going to put the screw in, but this screw just goes right in. It's not grabbing on anything, as if like the hole is just way too big. And that's when I realized that, something must be grossly wrong here, and it probably wasn't a manufacturing issue with this, 3-tier drawer system. It was a user, me being the user, error. So I realized when I look at so I'm trying to figure out what's going on here, because all the pieces kind of look similar. All the pieces for the arms look like virtually identical. And I take a really close look at the instructions and the pictures that are in the instructions, and I see that there's like a very, very, very subtle difference. And this isn't one of those instruction guides where they like label all the pieces differently, like this is piece A and this is piece B, and A goes into B, and then there's 2 A's and 2 B's. There was none of that. It's just like there's this many of this piece, this many of that piece, this many screws, and that was it. That was like the inventory of pieces. So I look at a close look at this picture. I'm like, okay, something's really, really wrong here. And now I'm in trouble because I stripped the screws. I basically had to bang these two pieces together on the other side. And I'm thinking to myself, I was like, how am I going to get this thing apart and put it back together? And I was like, really just scratching my head and almost thought about just throwing this thing out and getting another one and starting from scratch again. But then, I fear the wrath of my wife. And I said, I got to figure this out. So now I'm way into like hour 2 at this point. First hour has passed. I'm in my second hour assembling this thing. And I'm not kidding you. So I had to take this 3-shelf, rolling storage unit apart. And as I mentioned, I stripped the screws when I was, inserting them when I was putting that first arm together. So I had to take this thing apart, literally using pliers, but turning the screw like a quarter of a millimeter at a time. And it, not kidding, took me probably about 40 minutes to get those 2 screws out. I finally got them out. But then the problem was I pounded these 2 pieces of metal together that they were essentially welded together, and I had no chance of separating them. And now I'm thinking, what am I going to do? So I'm using all my might, can't budge this thing at all. I feel like my shoulder's getting sore. I'm trying as hard as I can, can't do anything. Finally, using all of these different tools and stuff, and the mallet and different insertion points and pressure points, I was finally, after literally 45 minutes, able to split these 2 pieces apart. And then I finally assembled the rest of the unit once I figured out what my error was in 20 minutes. So you're probably asking yourself what the hell is the point of this story? So there are a couple of lessons I learned here. First is, got to trust your gut. So initially when I was putting those 2 pieces together, in the back of my head, I was like, this isn't right. Something is wrong here. But instead, of having, accountability and trying to troubleshoot at that stage, I essentially fabricated a story of this must be some manufacturing error. And I just proceeded forward without kind of troubleshooting, as I should have done. So first lesson was trust your gut. If you feel like something's awry, take a pause, take an inventory of the situation. And if you can implement a fix, it'll save you from a lot of trouble. Like, 1 minute of thought there would have saved me like an hour and a half of aggravation. And that is literally would have saved me an hour and a half of aggravation. The second thing I learned is, once you make a mistake and you keep going forward after you've made a mistake, you end up just like compounding mistakes. So like, first I banged the two pieces that didn't insert smoothly together. I banged them together. So that was like created a horrible situation trying to separate them. Then I stripped the screws when I was putting them in. I should have realized then that, hey, this should not be this complicated. Usually the simple one tool that they provide, like an Allen key or whatever it is, a wrench, is all you need to assemble this, because their assumption is that you're doing this in like a dorm room somewhere and you don't have a tool set. So that was the second mistake I made. And that made me, when I had to take this thing apart, getting those screws out, I made, like a very simple mistake, which could have been corrected in a matter of seconds with that initial piece I put together. I turned it into like, hours of misery. So the key is trust your gut and try to correct mistakes as soon as you can to prevent the compounding of errors. I've used this sports analogy before where it's the 5 Ps. And I think the 5 Ps are proper preparation prevents poor performance. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. I love that, because had I prepared properly, laid out all of the pieces and, really kind of, plan my attack, spent 3 minutes of preparation, I would have been done with this project in 20 minutes. Instead, it took me over 2 hours to put this very simple thing together. So my preparation wasn't proper, but proper preparation prevents poor performance, a lesson that I continue to learn even at my advanced stage. So with that, I hope you all have a wonderful, restful weekend. Got a good chuckle out of the misery I endured putting this thing together for my daughter. But it's together and it's functioning very, very well. And that's all I got to say. Let's get it.